Zealand maintains an online military cenotaph with literally tens of thousands of entries from the Boer War through to Afghanistan. Of all those that served their country, this entry for Roy Courlander must be one of the most perplexing and troublesome. It also appears to be short of a mugshot. Let me help them out. This one may get Roy's better side. No, I haven't photoshopped it. Frankly, I'm too technologically challenged to attempt that. Indeed, the private, who later became a Lance Corporal, did swap sides during World War II, and with it uniforms. The most infamous military uniform of all. Courlander became a member of the SS. He was born in London and moved to New Zealand via Vanuatu in 1938. Courlander's first job was with the IRD, then he became a hotel porter. At night he sidelined breaking into houses, which he wasn't that good at. When the war broke out, he was still on probation when he joined the 2nd New Zealand Expeditionary Force, which fought in the ill-fated Crete and Greek campaign. Oh yeah, by then there was also a Mrs. Courlander, called Beryl. They met and married in just 3 days. Captured in April 1941, he ended up in Stalag 18D at Maribor, and then what was called Yugoslavia. His ability to speak German, something he began learning upon joining the army, put him in good stead with his captors. Another points for, as far as the Germans were concerned, Courlander had a rabid hatred of communism. The Germans eyed him up as a possible recruit, and in October 1942 transferred him off to more salubrious surroundings in Genshagen, Germany, all in order to entice him to switch sides, even if it was just for propaganda purposes. Desperate to fill their ranks, the SS were expanding their foreign legions and setting up a British/Commonwealth force known as the British Free Corps out of Genshagen on the outskirts of Berlin. It was nicknamed the Holiday Camp. There Courlander had unfettered access to beer and birds. In civilian life, he would be what we call a functioning alcoholic. This is a water painting of Genshagen. To segue briefly, interestingly, the original copy of this painting can be found in the Canterbury Art Gallery. How and why, I don't know. Anyway, along with the notorious British traitor, John Amery, Courlander became the Free Corps' main recruiter, the front men, touring POW camps in Germany and Austria, given their own radio show, all with little to no success. This wasn't necessarily the case with the SS recruitment campaign in other captured territories. 900,000 foreigners, Oostlanders, joined the SS in World War II. For example, the Dutch, Hungarian and French contingents all had around 20,000 members. The vast majority becoming frontline troops, not extermination camp guards, fighting to the end of the war. The French Charlemagne Brigade was all but obliterated in the ruins of Berlin. By comparison, the most action Courlander and his rebels saw was in the local brothel. With just 58 members, the British Free Corps was hardly a fighting force. To give some further damning perspective, 4,500 Indians were recruited into the SS. Right from the start, Courlander made it clear to his new masters he was very particular who he wanted to fight: the Russians. For him, the prospect of looking down the barrel of a T-34 was becoming more and more of a reality as the war turned against Germany on the Eastern Front. Defeat became all but inevitable after the Allies landed in France. By then the Germans had all but given up on the Free Corps. They had bigger fish to fry. Courlander saw the writing on the wall. Now needed to look after his own welfare. Wanted to get back onto the winning team. Now Unterscharführer, the equivalent of a sergeant, he organised a transfer from his radio job broadcasting disinformation to Britain into another propaganda unit which is filming amongst the action at the front, now in Belgium. It was there he allegedly did swap sides. At least that is what he claimed at his trial after the war. Asserted he was wounded fighting with the Belgian resistance behind the front line. Apparently. Highly likely not. What we know as a fact is the first chance Roy Courlander got to surrender, he took. He was captured in Brussels in September 1944, still wearing his SS uniform. It was now time to face the music. There was one thing confiding with the enemy to gain access to better resources and freedoms for yourself at the expense of your compatriots. At the other end of the spectrum, there was joining the SS, all members of which were now considered to be war criminals, orchestrators and perpetrators behind the greatest inhumanity mankind has ever seen. Just down the road from Genshagen, the headquarters for the Free Corp, was a slave labour camp. It was patently obvious he and his fellow rabble knew fully well what was going on in the extermination camps as well. Courlander was promptly trundled off to London for interrogation and to be tried. Being hung as a traitor was on the cards. That was the fate of his buddy, John Amery. In the end, he was convicted and court-martialed in December 1945 for aiding and joining the armed forces of the enemy. Returned to New Zealand to serve 15-year sentence, which was later reduced to 9. Went into general population at Mount Eden prison, during which he found religion. Nah, I just made that up. Roy Nicholas Courlander had no redeeming characteristics whatsoever. Halfway through his lag, Beryl, his wife, died of cancer. Literally the day he was released, he went off to marry one of his wife's friends, Margaret Spence. Went on a long bender, tried to make a go of it selling directories, indulged in petty crime, divorced Margaret, shot off to Australia in the late 60s. By the time he died alone in his Sydney flat in 1979, he was somewhat of a broken man. At 64, the booze had caught up with him. So far, no one has laid a poppy on his online cenotaph page. I can't see this ever changing. In an interesting postscript, Courlander's identity discs, SS paybook, arm badges, photos, and most importantly uniform, all became exhibits at his court-martial and then transferred back to New Zealand. Their location is now unknown. The discs, paybook, badges and Courlander's personal papers and photos are said to be held in the New Zealand Military Archives. The British Free Corp uniform allegedly somehow got into public circulation. and was lent out for a school play of all things in the 60s and never got returned. That would be an interesting find. Thanks for watching this video. Your likes and shares are greatly appreciated. I'll spot you next time.